Hey, Kevin here, top 100 financial advisor and best-selling author, and we are here to talk about the stock market. Today, we need to talk about the Russia and Ukraine conflict and how it's impacting the stock market and what you need to know as an investor. Now, I am not someone who got their degrees in geopolitical science, so what could happen, why it's occurring, and what could happen next in terms of a military conflict and all that kind of stuff. I'm not in the military. I didn't study military stuff. That ain't for me. Okay, so I'm gonna stick to what I know, and I'm gonna tell you what I don't know. And I don't know what's gonna happen in the political space and the military space. Okay, so that part I don't know. What I do know is how this can impact the economy and the global economy, which is what I got my degrees in. Okay, so as an investor, here's what you need to know. Right now, the stock market is being attacked or at least impacted on two fronts. We know about the inflation thing. We know about the interest rate things. Those two things are tied together. We've talked about that. We know that. This new and surprising thing to some of us is this whole Ukraine and Russia conflict. This is one of the things that I said early in the year, that there's always going to be something absolutely random that nobody really saw coming that can impact the stock market. This is that first event. There may be others during the year. Now, as an investor, for the most part, this is not something that I would panic about, because let's say the stock that I currently own, Kroger or CVS. Remember I told you about CVS, when it falls to a certain level, that's when I was going to get it. I ended up getting it today. But for example, CVS and Kroger have nothing to do, almost nothing to do with what happens in Ukraine and Russia. Regardless, if positive impact, negative impact, it don't really have anything to do with the value of those companies. So in cases like this, I'm not going to react in a negative way. I'm not going to, one, psychologically feel bad for myself and say, oh my God, I'm a terrible investor, the stock market is crazy, and hop out of something based on what's happening elsewhere. If the company is still solid, what happens there doesn't really impact you as much. This could be one of those times where, oh, I'll buy the dip. It fell because of a geopolitical thing. Everybody is kind of, on edge about what's going to happen. Market falls. I'll just go ahead and kind of nibble or pick out some stocks that I was already looking at, or that may be at a better price for me. So it's not necessarily time to overreact and sell and get upset. It's like, hey, this is not a great situation. However, there were some stocks I was looking to pick up. They fell to the right level. They kind of came down in price. I'm going to pick them up consistently as the market tends to dip. Because honestly, if Kroger was a good company, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, before we found out about this, it's probably still a good company now. It doesn't really have an impact for companies like that. This is what you do want to know, and a mistake that you want to, or not a mistake, but something you do want to be aware of. Should things escalate, and I'm not talking, World War III, which is what some people think we're going to be into, but again, that ain't my area of expertise. What we do know is that oil is the second producer of oil. Russia is the second largest producer of oil. And what we do know as well is, if things escalate, the United States, as well as parts of Europe and other countries, are going to implement what we call sanctions. Those are basically like punishments, economic punishments on the country, which punishes the country. That says basically nothing in or out, that we're not buying none of your stuff and we're not selling you any of our stuff, and you got to suffer those types of consequences, which can usually cripple some countries. The problem is, or the concern here is, that if we do that, we get things like iron, nickel, zinc from Russia, and oil we get from Russia as well. So if we're not receiving Russia's oil or their nickel and zinc and things like that, then we're not going to be able to produce some of the things that we need to produce. And that oil, if we cut off the second largest supplier, prices could go higher. That could make things difficult on some businesses, maybe a Boeing or maybe an airline company, or I say airline company. So yes, American Airlines, Spirit / Frontier, those could be impacted because perhaps price of fuel goes up. We have Chevron, EOG, I forget the total name of the company, ticker symbol is EOG, is one of the energy companies that I liked. I did not get into for reasons like this, because that whole geopolitical thing can really impact oil harder than other asset classes, other areas of the market. But those are things you want to be concerned about, have an eye on. This is not something I'm looking to trade and say, oh, this is going to happen, therefore I'm going to jump on to oil stocks. That's a very, very risky move, and it's an area that I am not an expert in. So that one I'm completely staying out of. But it is an area that you at least want to watch if you have a company that is, let's say, adjacent to the oil space. Is something that I would be very careful of. Again, airlines, maybe a Boeing, things like that. So that's one area you want to pay attention to. Gold and Bitcoin. When these things start to happen, when things are a little unstable on a geopolitical front, some people flood to digital gold, which is what we assume Bitcoin is and what we say Bitcoin has been, or actual gold in terms of like maybe a gold ETF or the commodity or something like that. That's where people tend to go. And then lastly, a lot of people tend to jump at things, defensive stocks in terms of not what I call defensive stocks, but like weapons manufacturers, companies like a Lockheed Martin, ticker symbol LMT. That's where people tend to go. Now again, I am not going to any of those areas because one, it doesn't make me feel good, and just me personally, it doesn't make me feel good to try and profit off of a potential conflict or war. I just try not to do that. Okay, so that's just me. But outside of that, it's so volatile, and we have no idea where this thing is going to go. And I don't want to risk my money because of a bad phone call between two presidents, because of, I don't know, a tweet or something crazy. I don't want no part in that. So what I am going to do is stay the course of what I was doing anyway. So I told y'all about CVS, told y'all about Kroger, all the stuff I was going to buy and hold anyway, all the DCA I was going to do anyway. I'm continuing to stick with the quality companies that I have. If I continue to find stocks that come down to a price point that I like, then I'm going to pick those up and I'm just going to ride things out. Because for the most part, the companies that I personally hold don't have a whole bunch to do with that particular region and those two countries. Yes, the overall global uncertainty can hurt the market. It probably will. It already has, especially today. But again, I'm keeping even keeled here. Like, this is one of those times, and we've seen this stuff before, whether it's been in the Middle East, where there's been a quote unquote threat. We went through stuff with North Korea where it was a thing, we're talking about it, market was shaky, and then we all forgot about it. Hopefully this goes that track where things just chill, everybody relaxes, nobody gets hurt, and we just, all go back to our corners and just relax. That's the best case scenario. But as an investor, though, your best case scenario is to relax yourself and focus on what you need to focus on. What were your goals? What investments did you have, and why did you have those investments? And once you answer those questions, then ask, what does this have to do with that? Because if the answer is nothing, then I need to do nothing. And I can just relax. I don't need to do anything. Now, if you told me investing in a company and 90% of their business is in Russia, we'll have to talk about that, right? That's a whole different scenario. So that's how you kind of want to couch this. If I'm investing in Microsoft, which I have, okay, I don't think this is gonna severely hurt their cloud business. I don't think that it's gonna hurt their metaverse play. I don't think it's gonna hurt their acquisition with Activision. Okay, right? If I'm buying CVS, I'm brought CVS a bunch of times today. Are there a bunch of CVS's in that region? I don't know. If it is and they all close down, is that really going to hurt the business that much? I doubt it. I would have to find out and see. Okay, so those are the areas you want to pay attention to. So just keep an eye out on oil, keep an eye out on gold, keep an eye out on Bitcoin, keep an eye out on those defense manufacturers like Lockheed Martin. I'm not telling you to jump into those. I think it's very, very risky, especially if you're new, to try and profit off of this type of event. So be careful there. Other things you want to pay attention to this week: Walmart announces their earnings, as well as Nvidia. Y'all know I'm a big fan of Nvidia. We'll see what happens. I will say this, that this could impact Nvidia. Now earnings just so happens to be placed during this week, and we'll see what happens. But because iron and zinc and certain types of metals, granite, I think it's the right material. But they're the things that to create these chips. Some of that stuff is in Russia. Some of it. I'm curious as to how that will impact Nvidia. Not necessarily for this week, but definitely down the line if things progress. So we'll see what happens there. This week for earnings, I don't know. It could be. I hope it's good because I own it, right? But we've seen earnings go swing in wild ways. So be careful of Walmart. Be careful with Nvidia. I don't think it'll swing as bad as what it did last week when we had like Facebook and Google and Microsoft a few weeks ago. I don't think it'll be that extreme, but these are some pretty large companies that people do have pretty large holdings in. So be aware of earnings. We already know about interest rates and inflation, and just keep your eye on the Russia-Ukraine situation in terms of how this can hamper the stock market for you, though. Again, I think it's an opportunity for you to just relax and for you to pick up any quality companies that may have just got beaten up for really no reason at all. All right, so you have any other questions that is not geopolitical related, because I don't know, let me know in the comments below. I know we're going to try and do a grade your portfolio episode this week because somebody submitted. If you want to submit, feel free to tell me your public name in the comments below, as well as any other questions or companies you want me to cover. All right, that's it for me. Talk to you guys later. Bye.